Hey there, I'm Brandon, and this is the Dirt Church Devotional. Yeah, I was just thinking the other day about something I did to my son when we were hunting years ago. He was about 8 years old. We're riding on a four-wheeler out deer hunting, and we came to this rock outcropping. Now, he's sitting behind me. He can't see around me. He was, like I said, about 8. And I rolled out onto this outcropping and started to roll over. And the cool thing from my perspective is you could see this whole valley. The not cool thing from his perspective is he couldn't see anything because he was stuck behind me. And as I rolled out there, I felt his body tense up around me. And I started laughing. I said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "You scare me, Daddy." Well, the reality, I would never hurt him. I wouldn't put him in harm's way. That being said, let me ask you this. Have you ever had a crisis of faith? A place where your faith just kind of runs out and you're just nervous and scared and frustrated all at the same time? If you haven't, hang on, because I got a hunch it'll happen at some point. It happens to most. For me, it was several years ago. We knew God had called us into ministry while I was working at Boeing. I did all of my credentialing work, got all my schooling behind me, and had got my credentials with the Assemblies of God, and I was gonna quit. I ended up getting laid off, which was better yet, financially. And so anyway, in that period, I ended up falling out of a treehouse, breaking my pelvis, not being able to collect unemployment, not being able to get any work, and I was really getting frustrated. I finally got a job at a warehouse pulling orders, and they ended up not wanting to keep me because I was too slow. That's a whole different story in itself. But as I'm sitting there waiting, now I went a year being unemployed and underemployed. I went a year with nobody checking my resume, nobody wanting us for ministry, and I was getting really frustrated. In fact, this one day I got to a point I was just spent, and I can remember going over in a corner and telling the Lord, "You know what, God? I'm not sure I've ever heard your voice. I'm not sure I know what's going on. I am sick and tired of this. I'm done. I'm done." And at that moment, God brought that memory to mind that I just shared with you about my son and I out hunting. He brought that, flashed that back before my eyes in my mind. And as I stood there and watched that, the Lord spoke to me, and he said this, in as much as you would never put your own son into harm's way, I would never put you in harm's way. He had to trust you, and you have to trust me. Will you trust me? And as I stood there, the anger started to leave, and I actually began to weep, and I just responded, "Daddy, you scare me." And here's the truth. Here's the point of all this. We don't always see the end. In fact, very rarely do we see beyond the next step when God is working in our lives and moving in our lives. But he's got the plan all put together. He sees the end from the beginning, the Bible says. He knows what he's doing. And a lot of the information for you and me is on a need-to-know basis, and a lot of times we just don't need to know. But that's where we got to learn to trust. So, again, if you haven't had a faith crisis yet, hang on. I got a hunch it'll come. But be prepared when it does. Lean in. Don't run away. Lean in and trust him. All right? Chew on that. We'll talk to you next time.